Good day everybody and welcome to the Scriptcase webinar. My name is Jamie Oates and I am your host here today. So today's topic is the specific field barcode, and the first thing we are going to do today is view a sample of the barcodes which is available within the samples project, and then we are going to have a look at how we can generate our own barcodes within the grid application. Once we've completed that, we will see how we can search for a specific barcode by creating a new search application, which will then add new items or products or barcodes into a new list. So let's start with the barcode example. At the bottom left-hand corner, we can search for barcode. If we enter barcode in here, then we will find the grid 51. As the description indicates, it provides us a list of barcodes. So we run the application. Within this example, we can see an example of each available barcode. All of these barcodes are typically used in the industries today for products, devices, categorization, and so forth, for basically being able to scan an item and then read it with a specific barcode reader, which would then output specific data, such as a date, a category, a product ID, and so forth. Now within this example, we have multiple codes. Each code presents different values and different options, as well as different visuals for each barcode. We have the codes visible here and available within the grid application, which we will be checking out in a moment. Each format is unique, and some of them do require a specific format, such as the code 128 is a letter and then 3 numbers, where the code 93 is also a capital letter and then 3 numbers, or code 11 is 123-55, for instance. Okay, so let's now have a look at the application example and check out the fields as well as the barcode field, and see how we can actually set this up within our own application. So we have available the data type, which is where we then specify the barcode field type. We can change the label, and below that we have the values format, where we then provide a type as well as an output. So the type, first of all, allows us to change the type of barcode we want to display, which we see within the grid example here. So then below that we then have the output, where we can change from PNG to JPEG, or even display a GIF if we so please. We then have the DPI, the thickness, as well as the resolution, rotation, and the font. Below that we have the option to generate an example. So here we can actually specify an example code, click the generate button, and it will display an example of what the barcode would look like within our application. And below that we have some specific information according to the barcode, which is quite important. So notice that the information changes and provides the specific details according to the barcode we have selected. It is important to note, as some of them do require specific composure. Okay, so let's save this now, and then we can actually take a look at another barcode. And we can see the varieties that we have here and how they are formatted. If we're unsure about the specific format, then we can have a look at the database. And within then the database, we can see that the table fields, how the fields are formatted, and how our data needs to be stored within the database so that we can achieve such a field. So I'm adding all of the fields now so that we can have a look at them, and what we're going to do is run them within the SQL Builder. And then below here we can now see the specific format which we are using for the creation of each of the barcodes. So we see here that we have multiple numbers, and then within the grid we can see that there is a space and so forth. We do not require the space to be stored within the database. We just need one string of numbers in this case. Okay, let's close the SQL Builder and let's go ahead and create our own application and see how we can generate our own code. So let's create a new application. We will then create a grid application. And we're then going to select the products table within the samples database. Oh, well, just some of the fields. We don't need all of them, so I'm just going to delete a few of them. Okay, as a short statement, we could of course leave the supply ID if we wanted to, and incorporate that into our end barcode if we wanted. So let's run the application and see what the grid looks like now without the field. And we see here we have our list of products, and we're now going to add a new field onto the right hand side here, and then that is where we're going to place our barcode. So back to the grid application, we're going to select the fields and add a new field. Here we go, next, and we can add a name for our field, which I'll call barcode. Okay, so we now have a barcode field, and running it again, we can see that the field is empty. So if we now go back to the grid and we change our data type from text to barcode, and then we can change the type to any kind of barcode we like. But first, let's go to the events and on record. We're going to save the form. And we're now going to specify the barcode equals product ID. So barcode is a new field we've created, and product ID is taken from the grid. And now if I run this, then we're going to see within the grid, first of all, we're going to have an error. Okay, so as it indicates, the barcode must start with a character A, B, C, or D. So we need to change our barcode or provide a character at the begin and end of our barcode. So back in the grid, we're going to change first of all the barcode we're using. So we're going to change from coda bar to code 11, where we have 123-45. Run it again, and we will now see that the barcode is correct. Okay, so we now have one ID, which is then the product ID, and then we can actually change it if we so please and adjust our code. But we're going to go back to the on record, and then we're going to modify from only the product ID to also include the category ID. Okay, so notice that we only have a 1 now, which is then the product ID within the barcode indicated. And then now within the grid, we're going to change it and include a dash, and then also the category ID. Okay, so if we run this again now, and then now within our grid, we're going to see that we have a barcode with 1-2 or 2-1, 3-2 and so forth, which is then our product ID and then our category ID. And of course we can include any numbers here so please, such as the price or an ID number for a person and so forth. Now notice that also within the PDF, if we export all of the fields or any of the fields, so now we only want the barcode really, and we will see that the barcode is also exported within the PDF document. Okay, so within the documents then we can scan them if we so please, or use them in ID cards, receipts and so forth. Okay, so let's go back to the grid. And as mentioned, we could change the category ID to any other field we so please, or use other fields or data that we have within our database, or of course randomly generate them within our code. So that would be the simplest way to actually perform or generate a barcode within a grid or even form application, by using the field and then using the on record event. Okay, so let's have a look at the grid field again. We can see that we have various barcodes available, and we can flip through them, change them, and then generate them. So we can always test them before they're actually displayed within our application and change our code accordingly so that we can actually create them successfully. So we could also create them on record if we so choose, and then generate them manually as we had done so within this demonstration. Okay, so going back to our homepage, and what we're going to do now is we are going to have a look at an example, which is an example of the platform which we will be now creating. So here we have a barcode search field, which we will be searching for a barcode, and this will then add a new product or item to our list below, where we can then adjust the quantity, reduce, increase, as well as delete a row. So we would enter our barcode, it would add the product below, and then we can actually manage our data as such. And if the barcode isn't available, then we receive an error message saying that the barcode is not available. Okay, so this is what we're going to be doing now. And if we then go back to script case, so first of all, I've created a database. So let's have a look at the database I've created. So within Database Builder, we can check out the table which I've added within the samples project. And there I've created a table called Qt, and there I've added a Qt ID. I've added a Qt product ID, a Qt ticket, which could be anything you please, a header, extra details or information, and then also a Qt count for quantity. So it's a very basic table which we're using for this example. And within our applications now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use this specific table and create a new application. And we will now also create a grid. We'll this time select the Qt table, which I've just shown you, and then create. Okay, so now our grid has been created. Let's have a look again. So this is again what we're creating, and this is what it looks like now. So we have a very basic grid right now, and we're now going to add the search and modify it so we can add our features and functions to it. So the first thing you want to do is add the initial module as search. And then we want to, on the application modules, change the filter module. We have the use frame and select yes. And then we run it again. And then we will see that we will have our search at the top and our grid below this. Okay, so now we need to change the fields that we have here, because of course we have a quantity ID, product ID, and so forth. And we actually want to create a new field for searching for barcodes. So we're going to go back to our grid application. And then we're going to go to our search. And then below that, we are going to go to our fields. No, we'll go to advanced search first of all and select fields. We will remove all of the fields we have here and save that. And then we will go to fields and create a new field. Now this new field is now a custom field, which we can now call, say, barcode again, and create. Okay, so if we run our application again, we will see that we have one search field, which is our custom field. And we want to now remove the criteria. So we can remove the criteria, we don't really need it. So let's go back to the search, and within our search section, we can select the search criteria and select none, and we don't want to show the condition. And then we can save that and run our application again. Okay, so we now have our search field ready, and we now just add some features or functions to it so that it actually provides us the barcode within the bottom section. So what we're going to do then now is we're going to go back to our grid. So back to our grid, we're going to now access the events within the search and on validate. And now on validate, we're now going to add a custom piece of code I've pre-prepared. And what we want to do is when we search for a barcode, we want the item to be added within the below list as well as the database, so that then we can manage our data within that grid separately. Okay, so we have now our select. So it's a select product ID and unit price from products when it equals the barcode we have entered. So of course, remember that the product ID was our barcode, and we could of course then customize that accordingly, which would then also provide us our search. Okay, so I've pre-prepared a piece of code, and here we have our SQL select. So we're selecting the product ID, the unit price, and taking that then from the products table where product ID equals our barcode field. Now do remember that the barcode can be any field really, because we can generate that within our code. We're then using the SC lookup. So we're using the SC lookup for our data set and then storing that within our SQL variable, which we have here. We then have an if empty statement, and if then the data set is empty, then the product ID equals the data received as well as the price. The price field equals price, and then we're using the SC exec SQL to insert our statement into the relevant table. So insert into Qt, Qt ticket, Qt product ID, and then the Qt count the values 1, the product value variable, and then the number 1. Else, we are displaying an SC error message, and that is this barcode does not exist. Okay, so we run our application, and now back to the grid or search application we've created now. We can now enter our product ID and then click the search field. So with this piece of code, it will then insert the new product which we've searched for into the new table which we are now actually using for this grid, and then within that grid we're then going to manage this data. So the first field, the number 1, as mentioned, that is basically the header or the ticket, and we could replace that with any piece of code we like. We then have the variable which we're then inserting, which is then the product ID, and then we are indicating the quantity 1. Now if this all fails, then we will display then the barcode does not exist. Okay, so let's run this again then with this code in place. And now if we search for the product ID, now AD will of course not exist. So we enter an ID, so a number 1 or number 3 in this case, and search again. It will now add a new product in the below list. So we're going to modify the grid now so we can actually identify what is within this list and add our plus minus and delete buttons and then adjust the code. So back to Scriptcase within our grid application. So now we want to go back to our left-hand menu and we want to make some adjustments here. So the first thing we want to do is add our price field. So let's go ahead and add some new fields. So we want to go to fields and then new field. Okay, so we're going to create now 5 new fields and go next. And then our first field will be the price field, and that will be a currency type. And the next field will be a total. That will also be a currency type. And then our next field will be the plus, the minus, and then the delete. Now each of these fields will be a HTML image. And of course we could use text and use a button which we've created in CSS if we so choose. But for this example, we're going to use a HTML image. It's a little easier to add. So let's create that. And now our new fields will be created. So let's add them for the image. For delete, we're going to add a image which then is a delete. So let's search for something for Dell. And I'm going to select one of these delete boxes, add selected, and let's go to minus. And we're going to save during, of course. Go to minus, add a new image also. This time search for minus, add a minus symbol, and next, and now the plus. Okay, so now the final image. So now adding the plus symbol, add that, and now run. Okay, so now within our grid application, we will now see the new fields plus the images that we've added. Okay, so now we need to add the actions to these buttons so that they function, so that on click, they increase and decrease as well as delete a row. We also want to include the price and also the total. And of course indicate the product ID, which would be useful to know what we're looking at. So let's go back to the grid. Now back in the grid, we're going to select events, and on events, we're going to go on record. Now within the on record, we're going to add another custom piece of code I've added, and this time we're going to use an SQL select, where we're selecting the product ID. And now what's going to happen now is that we're going to add. Now on each line, it will, with the on record, it will display the query within the grid. So now what we're doing here within this piece of code is we're selecting the product ID and the unit price from the products, where the product ID equals the product ID of this or X row. So again, we're using an SC lookup data set, and then also an if empty, then if not empty, the price will be what we've received from the database. The price will be price, and the total will be the price times the count. So if we run that again now within our grid, we will see now that we have the price as well as the totals calculated. So now that we have our price and total displayed, let's go back to the grid, and now we want to add the actions for the plus and minus buttons. So back to the grid. Okay, first let's move the fields around so that it's a little more organized. So let's move the total down and the price down. So then the plus and minus is between the quantity count. Okay, so let's run that, and now we should have the fields in a little nicer position. Excellent. Okay, so we now have a plus minus, and I delete everything in order, our price total, and now we want to add our functions for the plus and minus. So now let's go back to our grid, and within the Ajax events, we're going to add a new Ajax event targeting each of these fields. So the first field we're going to target is then the minus or the plus. And for the Ajax event is on click, because it's a grid, it only has on click. So we're going to create the event, and then we're going to add a custom piece of code again. So now what we want to do is update the count. So the count within the table, so updating the Qt table, setting the count, increasing it by 1, then using scexec to run the query. And then with the SCAjax refresh, we are refreshing the table and displaying the correct count within the grid. Okay, so we can run our application again, and we should now have this button with click functioning. Okay, so when we now click the plus symbol, we can see that the Qt count increases. So let's go back to the grid, and within the grid we're going to go new Ajax event again. This time select the minus and on click again, create event. And again, this time we're going to do the same query again, but this time instead of a +1, we're saying -1. And again, we're using the scAjax to refresh. So let's go ahead and save that. So let's now go ahead and add the delete function. So back to new Ajax event, and for the select field, the delete, create for on click, select to create the event, and now we add our code again, but this time to delete the field. So now when we run our application now, we can go ahead and search for a specific barcode, or in this case an ID, search. It will be added to our below list, and then from our below list we can go ahead and manage the plus, minus, as well as delete items. We can just delete items from the list by clicking delete. Okay, so delete's not working, so let's check that out, see what's up there. So we can see now within our field, first of all, let's just change these product names, and we want the products displayed as well. So we're just going to add that quickly and add the products table to an auto lookup so that we can identify the products. We don't just have a number there. Okay, so now running it, we can see now within the grid that we now have the product IDs. So let's go back to our grid and go back to the delete event. And what we're missing here, delete Qt. And of course, we're missing a from. Okay, so delete from Qt, where Qt ID equals, and off we go. Run this again, and now within the search application, we will now have a nicely running delete function within our grid. And now we can manage products, devices, or anything within a specific grid application where we have actually searched for a barcode and added them to a new table where we can then manage that data. Of course, we can generate and display barcodes within this grid if we so choose, and modify other data with some simple features, some simple additions within the events, or adding new fields within the grid and so forth. So we can customize this much further if we so choose, but I think you already have the idea of how we can actually search for barcodes and how we can generate and view them within our application. So thank you very much for watching this Gripcase webinar today. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Have a nice day. Thank you for watching.